New York, New York. Home to America's biggest buildings, its largest transit system, and the highest concentration of billionaires anywhere in the world.
Here, money runs everything.
Down on the ground, the city is bursting at the seams with a relentless entrepreneurialism. Whether it's multi-million-dollar boardroom brawls, bidding wars on exclusive apartments, or just hustling to pay the ever-rising rent. But high above it all lies a market that's hidden in the clouds, one that doesn't really adhere to the standard rules of real estate or engineering.
Welcome to Billionaires Row.
Home to some of the most tall and slender buildings in the world.
9-figure deals, pencil-thin towers, and cutthroat brokers. New York's Billionaires Row is construction at its most extreme.
These insane skyscrapers are what you get when you combine super small plots of land, restrictive zoning laws, amazing engineering advancements, money, and sheer willpower. They break almost every mould and now stand as marvels of modern design.
But even among this new forest of super tall luxury, there's one building that stands out from the rest and creates a genre all on its own. It's not the most eye-catching skyscraper on the block, but its story is unlike any we've told before.
220 Central Park South is really the outlier on the Billionaires Row corridor.
The building that everyone who's a billionaire has to live in.
These are helicopter people. Their feet don't touch the ground.
There was no need for any marketing, and then it just took on a life of its own.
The two most expensive homes to ever sell in the United States have one major thing in common. They were both apartments at 220 Central Park South.
It is the world's most profitable condo building.
220 Central Park South has it all. Developer clashes, insane engineering, extreme wealth, ruthless power, foreign money, and backdoor deals. This is how a little-known skyscraper quietly became the crown jewel of Billionaires Row. The skyscraper made New York. When it was developed, this ancient island was covered in greenery, and if it had stayed low-rise, it probably wouldn't have amounted to much.
But these extraordinary towers have let it continuously increase its area and welcome millions of people and businesses. Each shaped by the powerful economic and geographic context of its time, the city's skyscrapers now stand as silent chapter markers in its ever-evolving story.
At the turn of the 20th century, things were no different. New York's population was booming, and so was its development. That ushered in a new era of construction, one that lured in wealthy residents with luxurious co-ops for sale. Think ornate facades, exclusive amenities, and a cutthroat application process ruled by notoriously stuffy co-op boards. And so began the carousel of New York's It building, a coveted status symbol marked by steel and stone. One of the earliest stood at 834 Fifth Avenue on the Upper East Side. Completed in 1931 and home to Lawrence Rockefeller, it was once described as the most pedigreed building on the snobbiest street in the country's most real estate-obsessed city. Also built in the 30s was 740 Park Avenue, once home to John D. Rockefeller. For nearly a century, these roads right alongside Central Park have been the most coveted corridor in New York City. Then, around the mid-2000s, another building started turning heads. Right across the park stood 15 Central Park West, a two-sectioned asymmetrical tower with a striking limestone facade. Only this one was a condo, not a co-op. That meant buyers no longer needed a legacy name to get their application noticed. A massive bank account was enough to get you in the door. 15 Central Park West drew in CEOs, celebrities, tech executives, and even the daughter of a Russian oligarch who bought the penthouse for $88 million. Then, around the start of the 2010s, something changed. We saw not just one building, but an entire street of skyscrapers become the city's new place to be.
I'm out here on Billionaires Row, the most expensive street in America.
This is what $54.6 million buys you in New York City.
Kicking off with 157 in 2014 and then 432 Park Avenue the following year, this series of super tall skyscrapers lined up along the southern edge of Central Park. Now that's impressive given there are hardly any sites left in this congested corner of what is one of the world's most congested cities. With only small parcels of land available, developers found themselves under pressure to maximise floor area and park views in order to drive a return, a pressure that they passed on down to their engineers. The result was the rise of a whole new architectural style. Meet the super slender skyscraper, an elegant 21st century solution to some very 21st century constraints. Width to height ratios were pushed to the extreme, foundations went to a different league, and super strong concrete cores were paired with stabilisation tricks like dampers and open floors that help manage intense wind loads. This new breed of building is seriously thin. 111W57, the world's thinnest skyscraper, has a width to height ratio of 1:24. Compare that to 1 Madison or 520 Park Avenue, buildings already considered slender, and you get the picture.
Engineers had broken a frontier and a phenomenon emerged. The ability to buy a newly built apartment in a super tall skyscraper with uninterrupted views of Central Park. And the world's wealthiest people snapped them up.
Now, the development of these properties has been anything but simple, but once they got through all the politics and permissions to actually build Billionaires Row, there was another, less glamorous barrier standing in the architect's way. Their computers. The teams behind Billionaires Row spent countless hours designing, testing, and rendering out many designs before a single foundation was ever dug. But boundary-pushing engineering doesn't need to come with boundary-pushing workflows.
Our video sponsor AMD is a game changer for complex architecture projects like these. This is seriously impressive stuff. AMD's new Ryzen Threadripper Pro 7000 WX series processors can save architects up to 27 minutes in every hour of work by seriously upgrading their computer systems.
AEC professionals use all sorts of processing-heavy softwares that range from lightly threaded 3D modelling to multi-threaded reality capture and rendering tasks. Throughout the design and construction process for 220 Central Park South, there would have been hundreds of different renderings, 3D models, and possibly even virtual reality models of the building.
These new types of AMD processors are top of the line when it comes to juggling all different types of workload, meaning architects and engineers don't have to sacrifice productivity when it comes to switching between different compute requirements. Now, if you're using tools like Autodesk Revit, then this processor's high-frequency cores are perfect for seamless 3D modelling and design.
And they provide up to 96 cores for generating photorealistic renderings and animation with popular render engines like Corona Render or reality capture tools like Metashape. If you want to check out AMD's range of Threadripper Pro and Ryzen Pro products to see how they can help improve your workflow, click the link in the description.
But now, let's get back to the story of how New York's Billionaires Row came to be.
Over the last couple of decades, wealth inequality, particularly in the US, has been widening. Today, the top 1% of Americans own a much bigger share of the total wealth than the middle 40%. And if you zoom out and take a look at the wider world, you'll see that the richest 10% of people control a whopping 76% of the wealth.
Essentially, that means there's now more money in the hands of fewer people, and many of those people are looking to secure and grow their wealth even more by investing in what's long been one of their safest bets: luxury real estate.
The new Billionaires Row that emerged from all this is big, bold, and architecturally impressive. It now dominates the world's most famous skyline and has forever changed the shape of it. But you won't find the most technically challenging and financially successful building in the area among the acres of photos or beautiful drone footage that's afforded to the glass super tools. That's because it was an altogether more secretive affair that emerged on this little site right here.
So this is it. This is
it.
Billionaires Row.
What do you notice about it?
It's just all so thin, isn't it?
Look around you. This is all glassy edifices, flashy, and then you've got this somewhat nondescript building. Besides how skinny it is, there's nothing really that jumps out at you.
Hitan Samtani co-authored the definitive story on 220 Central Park South at The Real Deal. We worked closely with him throughout our research to help us tell this story.
This project is a totem for everything that is decadent and depraved about New York City real estate. It has it all, Fred. I mean, billionaire battles, trench warfare, extreme engineering, class warfare, billionaires sort of vying for each other's properties. It is a level of complexity and narrative intricacy that I've never seen in a project before.
He connected us to Pam Liebman, head of the Corcoran Group, one of the leading real estate brokerages in the country, which oversaw several sales at the property.
I love real estate because it changes every day. You learn something new every day. You probably work more than you would in a regular job, but it's very rewarding, fulfilling, and I just love it.
220 Central Park South got off to a quiet but promising start. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, it blew everyone out the water.
4 full floors of a new condo off Central Park for $238 million. That makes it the most expensive home ever sold in the United States.
Illinois' richest man, Ken Griffin.
Ken Griffin coming in at number 1, wealth $35 billion.
Enter Ken Griffin.
Ken Griffin is one of those few people in America who has both the money and the ego to try to shape cities to his will.
This Ken is one of the world's richest men. The Citadel CEO and hedge fund manager is no stranger to extreme wealth and success. But he set a new standard for conspicuous consumption when he walked into 220 Central Park South and bought the most expensive residential property in US history.
Real estate people thought, this is great. This just shows you that people are willing to spend this kind of money in New York City, and this is a building that's really making a statement.
Now, Griffin already owned several high-end properties around the world, but this became the crown jewel of his portfolio. He later went on to buy 2 additional units within the same building. Ken Griffin's purchase put it in a league above even the most exclusive skyscrapers. But hold on a minute, how did this even happen? Well, the truth is, to really understand that, we've got to take you guys back to where it all began.
The site's called YouTube.com. It's kind of like Flickr for videos. College students across the country are, quote, Facebooking.
We have so much data about what people are doing.
When you stand for your liberty, we will stand with you.
Hurricane Katrina barreled ashore.
The breakup of Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston.
This is the new iPod now.
It's early 2005, and rumours of a US real estate bubble are looming. Then there's the New York City housing market. During that same year, a potential deal came across the desk of a development firm called Claret Group. It had 3 of the main ingredients for successful real estate: location, location, and location. The offer was to buy out an unimpressive 20-storey rental building that had a super impressive address. 220 Central Park South could offer sweeping views of the park if a newer and taller tower were put on the site. At the same time, the existing property was nearly half vacant, but still home to some 47 rent-stabilised tenants, people who are protected from sharp increases in their monthly payments.
It was really a smattering of the average New Yorker, from wealthy people to just your middle class people. You had everything from a professor of gerontology to a record producer, actually quite a prominent record producer. He actually occupied the penthouse, and I believe he paid $1,200 a month in rent.
Claret Group saw the opportunity and ran with it. But to gain approval from the state and move forward with a whole new building, they needed money, and lots of it. And with remaining tenants on the site, it wasn't exactly a straightforward process.
There is this particular quirk of law that if you want to demolish a rent-stabilized building, you have to essentially show that you have the financing in place to build something new. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem.
Unable to secure a loan, Claret Group instead sought out a financial partner. Enter Vornado Realty Trust, led by Mr. Steve Roth.
We are a public company, so public, private, sucking up to the public companies.
He's an absolute buccaneer, even though he runs a public company.
His standard is the highest standard I've ever seen.
At that point, the real estate investment group had a market cap of over $10 billion.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
In August 2005, Claret brought Vornado on as a 90% equity partner in the project and ultimately closed a deal at $137 million. But the story doesn't end there. Before they could build what is now 220 Central Park South, work needed to be done, including tearing down the building that was there before and buying enough air rights to build taller, a task that fell to Claret.
Yeah, you heard that right. Here in New York, it's not just the buildings for sale, but the air above them too.
Developers can snatch up air rights around their properties and combine them to comply with development limits in the area and build even taller than they could before. The process can take years, but it's what's allowed 220 Central Park South and much of Billionaires Row to rise so high while preventing close neighbours from blocking those awesome views. Now, before you demolish a building, it's polite to ask people to step out of it first. Here, that meant buying out tenants, and to no one's surprise, the residents of 220 were not so keen on moving out. So the firm faced an expensive battle.
I believe in the end, they were paid between $1.3 and $1.6 million each to leave. Right? That's a good chunk of money for the average New Yorker.
The project took so long and cost so much more than expected that Claret's upside was essentially wiped out. Vornado wrote them a check for their troubles and assumed full control. Building a skyscraper like this is a marathon, and not everyone has the stamina to last.
Stephen Roth is known primarily as an office landlord. He took a really significant interest in 220 because the site for it was directly opposite his own office.
Catherine Clark is a journalist and author who became known as a kind of sleuth of Billionaires Row, uncovering the big buyers on the block.
And so he would look out his window and he would see that site and he would think, that's the best site in New York. I need to build a condo there.
So far, so New York. But just as this legal battle was unfolding, a Trojan horse had stealthily entered the field of play.
Enter Gary Barnett, the founder of Extell Developments.
He is a very prominent developer in New York. Kind of loves complexity, is somewhat addicted to complexity and messy, decades-long projects.
Around the time Roth was facing resident lawsuits in 2005, Barnett bought a partial stake in a 13-year lease at a basement parking garage directly below 220 Central Park South. He then went on to acquire an additional small parcel right in the middle of the Vornado development site. Why, you may ask? Well, Barnett was the owner of a nearby development site between 57th and 58th Street, and he hopes to build his own luxury property there, complete with Central Park views and their accompanying price tags. No views means less money, so when he heard that a building at the 220 site might go up, he swung into action and set up a bargaining chip to use against Vornado in the future. By the time Vornado wanted to clear the site in 2011, Barnett pulled out his ace card.
So Vornado find this all out. What's their reaction? I guess they're not happy, right?
They're not happy at all. They're trying to sue the hell out of these guys and trying to get them out of there.
Finally, in 2013, Vornado folded and agreed to pay $194 million for the tiny Extell-owned parcel and its air rights in the middle of their development site. That's a whopping $1,400 a foot, more than twice the going rate at the time. And in an arrangement to preserve each other's views, Extell moved what would eventually become the mammoth Central Park Tower to the east, while Vornado shifted 220 slightly to the west. Extell's super tall skyscraper also introduced a cantilever that extended 8.5 metres out above the Art Students League of New York building for the small payout of $32 million, thus ensuring more units could keep their views of the park. At last, Vornado could move forward with its plans.
Or so they thought. Construction here in New York is anything but cheap, even for a titan of a developer like Vornado. So the firm reached out to someone with even deeper pockets.
I owe the Bank of China a lot of money. Right? I am in the suck-up business to the Bank of China.
To build 220 Central Park South, Roth borrowed a cool $600 million from the Bank of China in 2014, followed by an extra $350 million a year later. By this point, 220 Central Park South had been years in the making. It had secured developers, funding, and cleared a plot of land in busy Midtown Manhattan. Now it was time for the fun part, and architect Robert A.M. Stern was hired to handle the design. 220 Central Park South is a truly remarkable feat of construction. Its rectangular form rises 290 metres into the sky, but measures just 16 metres across. That's a width-to-height ratio of 1:18. But to go up, construction teams first had to dig down. Through controlled blasting and painstaking rock hammering, they excavated 15 metres into the bedrock and installed 3 2.5 metre thick concrete slabs and 142 rock anchors. Working so close to existing buildings, they constantly monitored them to ensure their structures weren't being affected. With the foundations complete, construction crews moved above ground and began constructing the skyscraper's most critical structural element, its spine, the concrete core. Take a look at your standard skyscraper floor plan and you'll always see the core in the middle. It means your structural beams that hold each of the floors up can run out to the perimeter columns and don't have far to go. It's also where you'll always see the elevator shafts, services, stairs and bathrooms. It makes for a good vertical access route up through your structure, and it means that people in your tower are all going to get natural light and a nice view out. But there was only one view that mattered at 220 Central Park South. The real deal got a hold of the floor plans, and we've recreated them to show exactly how wealth is shaping engineering decisions in this building. To maximise saleable area, the core was pushed to the southern perimeter. Any interior columns were eliminated to create an open, flexible floor plan in the apartments, and that now much larger gap between the core and the northern perimeter was bridged with a 28cm thick concrete slab. Towers like this are subject to extreme wind loads and a phenomenon called vortex shedding, where differing air currents can pull up the structure, causing it to sway. To counteract this, 220 includes an 1,100-ton swinging weight in a space near its summit, known as a tuned mass damper. With 118 apartments, the 220 project combines a shorter 18-storey structure known as the Villa, with a much taller 70-storey tower behind it. But precast or hand-set limestone wouldn't work for a building this tall, so a limestone curtain wall system was developed instead. Unlike glass, this material is opaque, and that allowed engineers to hide more spandrel beams behind it around the perimeter of the tower. When combined with the shear walls between the smaller apartments on the lower levels, this approach helped further improve the building's overall strength and stiffness. Finally, an unusual mega-frame concept was adopted. This grouped the main perimeter columns on the northern facade into 4. The columns were much larger, but they helped to maximise those Central Park views. Another illustration of how almost every inch of this building has been shaped by the market it's targeting. The tower was expensive, to say the least. We couldn't get our hands on official figures, but Steve Roth claimed Vornado was spending around $5,000 per square foot on construction. That eye-watering sum would be way above the circa $3,000 that other Billionaires Row towers spent, and quite clearly in a whole different galaxy to your average walk-up apartment. It's a budget that gets you all kinds of things, from oak flooring and marble cladding to saltwater pools. In total, the building cost around $1.5 billion. Roth went big, confident that he could up the sale price, and it worked. Vornado went on to drive more than $3 billion in sales. Roth had built the most profitable condo in the world. But to get returns like that, you've got to think outside the box. As you might have realised, there are only so many people in the world who can afford an apartment like this. Even on Billionaires Row, a $238 million sale is out of the ordinary.
These are helicopter people. Their feet don't touch the ground. They go from private school to charity gala to penthouse, right? They're not interacting with the average city dweller. So they're living in this different world. And often developers are thinking about them and building for them.
We just had enough people coming to us, and then it just took on a life of its own. And we did it very quietly. People signed NDAs. We invited co-brokers in.
There are 8 billion people on our planet, but a little over 2,600 of them are billionaires. So right from the start, there's an incredibly small demographic of buyers who can realistically afford these units. Now, not everyone in the building is a billionaire, but it's a good place to start. Cut to May 2015.
White and gold or blue and black.
We are going to make our country
have wage equality once and for all and equal rights for women.
For the last time on a television program, thank you
and good night.
220 Central Park South had just launched sales, and Roth hopped on an earnings call to reveal the big news.
In just 6 short weeks, without any advertising, marketing, or outreach whatsoever, we already have commitments for over $1.1 billion, representing about 1/3 of the building. So 1/3 of the building is now sold.
Now, hang on a minute. No advertising, no marketing, not even a website, and yet over $1 billion in sales in just over a month. How did he do this? After all, your typical luxury condo market is, well, a bit more flashy when it comes to getting the word out. Steve Roth, on the other hand, had gone in a very different direction.
Stephen Roth treated that building less like a condo and more like his own personal country club. So he took a really significant interest in who was buying there, who would be allowed to come and see the units. So it created this velvet rope effect where, if you weren't allowed to be in there, you wanted to be in there even more. And that really sent the values skyrocketing.
Steve knew what he was doing. He treated that building as though he was going to live in every apartment. So most developers, when they're planning it, they start to value engineer it. He did the opposite. He would add things to make it better. So he created this vision of this is a building me, a billionaire, would live in, not me, him. So there was right off the bat this big feeling of comfort from all these other buyers that if Steve's in charge, this is going to be different.
Wealthy domestic purchasers were dropping tens of millions on units. The CEO of Paramount Group paid $33.5 million. The founder of RL Capital got a place for $26.2 million. Even Sting became an official Englishman in New York when he nabbed one of the penthouses for $65.7 million. After years of plotting, planning and persistence, 220 Central Park South had become the creme de la creme of Billionaires Row. Like so many things in life, reaching the top gets you noticed. And just as the team behind the super tool celebrated their success, the city of New York began to pay attention.
It's not easy to find something nearly all New Yorkers agree on, but when it comes to rent...
What we need here is affordable, permanent housing.
The average monthly rent has jumped to a record high of nearly $5,600.
Is it going to get any better anytime soon? What's the future look like?
The record-breaking apartment in the sky stirred up debate among those experiencing the shocking wealth disparity back here on the ground.
Some politicians used the news to resurface the proposed tax on owners with second homes valued over $5 million. A move that would generate millions of dollars for the city. But they're struggling to keep up with Billionaires Row.
Legislators are deeply steeped in the intricacies of New York City real estate. Billionaires Row is the essence of trophy real estate. We don't know the level of taxes they pay. So if they don't live here, they're not contributing to the same degree as the rest of us toward essential city services.
A pied-à-terre tax would be a small surcharge on these properties, a move that some felt to be entirely reasonable since so many were just investment vehicles that often sat empty. The tax had actually been pushed before, back in 2014, but it was always a long shot.
Obviously, I think that's ridiculous. These are people who spend a lot of money and put a ton of money into our city and fund so much of what makes New York what it is. You would never want to antagonize or alienate these people. And we already have significant taxes when people buy these kind of apartments. If you think about what the mansion tax and city and state transfer taxes were on this building, I mean, it was big. Very, very big. Thank you, Steve. The city should be thanking him.
Ultimately, it was lobbied against, and lawmakers dropped it in favour of a newly enacted mansion tax, an additional charge on properties valued over $1 million.
Having wealthy people in our city is a good thing if it contributes to the lifeblood of our economy. I'm not certain, though, that always is the case.
This building speaks of so much. Incredible engineering, a rising wealth gap, the relentless ambition to maintain and grow that wealth among the world's richest people, the complicated relationship between government and real estate, and above all else, the power of money in a city that's constantly reinventing itself. Like a diamond, formed under immense pressure in the perfect conditions and at exactly the right time, 220 Central Park South has risen as a monument to all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
This city's buildings have always adapted to whatever history's thrown at them. They've always responded and evolved to help New York keep pace. We saw it with the construction of the first skyscrapers here in the early part of the 20th century, with the construction of the World Trade Center in the 1970s, and then the rebuilding of the World Trade Center after 9/11. We saw it with the way developers built skyscrapers over a live rail yard, and most recently we're seeing it in the form of Billionaires Row. But even among all that, the story of 220 Central Park South sets an extreme new bar. Even among the engineering awe of Billionaires Row, it stands out for the most extreme of reasons. What's struck me most about coming here this time and covering this aspect of Billionaires Row is how I'm in one city, but I'm talking about two completely different worlds. The people of New York are struggling to find affordable housing, they're struggling with a cost of living crisis, and yet up there in those skyscrapers are people living a very different life.
This exact combination of greed, wealth, design, litigation, it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, not even close. New York City is the only place this could happen.
I don't think we're going to see another phenomenon like Billionaires Row for quite some time. We saw that narrative play out, and the people who got in a little bit too late lost a lot of money, had a lot of trouble, and we're not seeing the same hunger to build that ultra luxury real estate anymore, at least at that scale.
History's littered with examples of cities that became so great, so renowned, but then ultimately pushed too far. And I can't help but feel, being on the ground here and digging into this story, talking to people involved in it and those living a normal life in New York City, that this place, this city that has so much allure and that I love and so many others love so much, might be going the same way.
This video was produced by the B1M in collaboration with The Real Deal. You can read more of Hitan's reporting on 220 Central Park South at the link in the description. This video was sponsored by AMD. You can learn more about them at the link below. We're raising awareness of construction's mental health crisis and supporting charities in this space through our Get Construction Talking initiative. There's a video series on our channel, and you can find support or donate over at getconstructiontalking.org. And as always guys, if you enjoyed this video and you want to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, subscribe to the B1M.